The Chimera is one of the most interesting medium tanks that you'll probably meet from the British line that is of course a tier 8, and that is not only because, I mean, it looks pretty cool and it's of course free as part of the earn operation for the Halloween as the Monster Hunter, of course, with only 2 days remaining as of the recording of this video, and you'll have about 1 day and a little bit tomorrow to be able to complete it as well. But most importantly, what does this tank actually do? Well, the Bellerophon is of course a vehicle that has 440 alpha damage, which is in line with some of the best heavy tanks at this tier, but of course it's denoted as a medium tank, which is, not necessarily something that you would necessarily expect. But the Inferno Chimera is really good because of that 440 alpha damage. It has decent penetration on the premium rounds, and I mean, the AP rounds are okay, but with the premium rounds you do just get increased penetration, you get increased shell speed, which can be a little bit of a problem with this tank because it has 732 meters a second, which is basically the same speed as HE rounds on this vehicle when you're firing the AP. So it's really slow and it can be a pain to be able to use unless you're coming up against opponents right in front of you. So with that being said, how have we set this tank up to make it even better? Well, we have of course gone with our favourite, which is Advanced Loader. Now, giving ourselves a little bit of extra damage per minute and of course reloading quicker, etc. Really good. Almost an essential kind of equipment slot that you use on every single tank, because at the end of the day, it's just increasing how fast you can fire and therefore how much damage you can deal as quickly as possible and take tanks out as quickly as possible. Then we are going with Advanced Optics because we want to be able to actually spot the people who might actually spot us. And because we're a medium tank, we actually get a decent amount of still concealment. And we also get a decent amount of view range, which is 486 meters, which you might think, that is actually very good. And yeah, you're right, this tank is very good at being able to spot opponents, but it is quite big and therefore the still concealment is slightly higher than maybe some of the smaller mediums like the Borask, etc. at this tier. But because of the 344, you are able to usually outspot opponents that you'll fight, especially if they're heavy tanks, which is nice. And of course, you'll be primarily playing this tank as a heavy. It isn't a traditional medium in the sense that you might think it is, even if it can go 50 kilometers an hour, which is really nice. It's like a super fast, heavy, medium hybrid. And of course, getting the really good armor on the turret because it has that gigantic amount of spaced armor that comes in the form of the lion head, which sits in front of your mantlet and is really good because essentially behind that you have some relatively thick armor as well. And that allows you to bounce a lot of rounds, and that's primarily what you want when you're using the Inferno Chimera, is to play it as like a hold down beast. And because it has 10 degrees of gun depression, you can use it on a ridgeline, making this tank very powerful, and one of my favourite kind of British heavy tanks, I guess, that you can play in the game. It gets a 30% silver bonus, so it's actually really bad in terms of its silver bonus, so it's genuinely not necessarily the best tank when it comes to that. It has less than the basic bog standard silver bonus that you typically get. Now, whether that is a glitch in Wargaming's thing, because I'm pretty sure every single premium usually gets 150% silver, but maybe it isn't and it is actually true. But just take that as a kind of note if you're thinking you're going to earn a ton of money when playing with this vehicle. But with the 50 kilometers an hour at top speed, the good gun depression, with the good kind of alpha damage that you get, and the relatively okay damage per minute of 2,300, that's of course set up with all of the bonuses to the damage that we can deal in this tank, it is pretty nice. And I find it to be really kind of one of the more interesting medium / heavy hybrids that you'll find in the game, which is why we were able to have some really good games dealing with a lot of heavy tanks and being able to bounce quite a few rounds as well in between. So with that being said, Accuracy of this tank, very good as well, roughly for the alpha damage that it has, 0.34, set up in the way that we've got it. Of course, we have gone with gun stabilizer for the improved accuracy, and it's almost a must because it's just so important to make sure that you're hitting your shots, and any increase to the accuracy that we can get is really, really crucial because standard kind of accuracy of the tank, not amazing, but with that, makes it more than enough for most situations that you're going to find yourself in. And because you're going to be fighting fairly close range aggressively in the tank, that's how you should play this vehicle, you're going to make it work quite well. So with that being said, let's actually jump into some gameplay to show you how this tank actually plays if you did decide to pick it up as part of the operation for the Monster Hunter. So remember, as a final reminder, please do redeem the vehicle. Of course, you can only pick one tank with the points that you own, to choose wisely. We've done videos on quite a few of them, including the Hollenhund, the Dragon, and we've done all of the vehicles before at some point, so just, you know, keep an eye on it when you do decide to actually pick your tank. And of course, you can find that on YouTube. Go check out some of the other reviews if I haven't got one, and of course, or easily findable one. So yeah, let's jump into the game, and I'll see you there. So the first game that we do have is on El Hallouf, and El Hallouf is a map that is actually very well suited to this vehicle because of the fact that you do have that close range engagements, which are able to really farm up a lot of damage in the games, whilst also being able to avoid quite a lot of damage by pulling back and just basically avoiding people getting the hull armor of the vehicle, because although you have good alpha damage, you have a good turret, the hull armor kind of sucks. And that means that you're going to be getting penned quite easily by people if they actually know what they're doing and not just firing at the upper plate, at which point they might actually bounce. So with the fairly low profile hull armor that this tank has, maybe they can bounce off the upper hull, and because the upper hull is actually quite well angled on the sides, if they're auto aiming from distance, they can potentially bounce off of you, dependent on whether they do hit those kind of angled frontal plates. Now that depends entirely on what the opponent is actually doing, but anyone with any half a brain will be able to find the lower plate, which is pretty big, or just the side armor of this thing, because it's so large that if you're not angling in exactly how you need to, then you'll get penned by most things. So straight away in this game, I have pushed up. We want to make sure to try and get a bit of damage. Unfortunately, not managing to get any on the T-77 there. And then, of course, we get our friend in the VZ deciding to pull out, and we miss a free shot of damage. So, yeah, a little bit unfortunate with that one. But we're going to make it work, hopefully, in this game to try and get a bit more damage than you might expect. Now, we pull out, try and get one into the T-77, and then, of course, he pulls back literally as we fire. And then it looks like other people are going to start trying to cross as well, which they do apparently do. And this time, they're not going to get as lucky as we pump the Sturm Tiger for a low roll of 436. So yeah, it's always nice when you can hit people for you know, 400, even if you do low roll for 396. So far not looking good on the rolls. The Hellcat is firing what appeared to be HE, but maybe wasn't firing HE, I don't know. We're then getting pumped from behind by what looks like it might be a Barask or something else. I'm checking to see what it is. It's the Stone Cold. The Stone Cold is, of course, a kind of an American autoloader with a pretty nasty gun if you get it actually unloading onto you and you're not able to find it or spot it or whatever. But we need to keep an eye. I don't want to get hit by this guy again. And so with that being said, we want to actually get a shot into this guy. We want to remove him from the game, stop him from being able to come from behind, because it's stopping us from playing to our full ability in this area of the map. So let's get one into him. We're going to aim a little bit. Our tank is basically, well, our aiming circle is basically all over that tank and it's not got any armor, so that's fine. We're pulling back behind the ridge. We don't want to expose until we're actually reloaded, so that's fine. Then we get another one into him and thank you very much. Someone decided to come on the bottom of the map. I don't know why they moved down there in like C3, but they got finished off by some of our tanks in the back. But I want to keep an eye on this TLC, because he can be a bit of a pain, especially if he takes out the guys that are in our base, because there's only one of them, and if he does that, then yeah, so it won't look too good. Now we do get penned by the Stone Cold. That is primarily because we're looking down the slope, so our upper plate makes or the angle of our upper plate is really easily pennable, because you know they're basically looking at a flat plate of armor, and it isn't the most armored part of the vehicle because it's so well angled normally that usually people won't be able to pen you. Now unfortunately I do actually get in the way of my teammate here. We go for the T-34, but I think it actually manages to hit the Hellcat, which is nice. And so we've just got to basically play on this ridgeline, try and bounce a few shots. They can only see the turret, and this is where the bouncing capabilities of this turret are actually just super good. And it's really fun to play a tank like this, where you know the armor does work when you're using it properly, and you can find those periods of in the game where you can actually use it. Now with a TANK coming from behind, I want to try and help the team out. We get a little bit lucky with hitting that one, but it seems like we are destined for low rolls in this game, only hitting him for 406. Now there is a Caro who's over there. We try and go for the lower plate, a bit of kind of an idiot shot, to be honest with you. He was already pulled back when we actually fired, so you know, slap my head with that one, but hopefully we'll be able to get him with the next one. And of course we do the exact same. So yes, I should really be waiting and then waiting for him to just pull out, because he is probably gonna do that, and we're just basically wasting time at this point, giving the opponents a chance to get a few more shots into our teammates here before we can finish them off. Now I'm really worried about the TANK being behind, because we don't have the most armor, and of course he could crop up from behind. So we don't want to find ourselves in a little bit of a sausage sandwich with one in front, one behind. And so yeah, we're just basically waiting to see if he's going to crop up. We are pretty safe in staying in this position. We can't get hit from directly in front of us because we're behind the hill. You can see here no one can actually get shot unless they fully pull over, at which point that's fine, because you know our team are going to be able to get some shots into him. I underestimate the actual lead time that we had to give the TANK, allowing him to you know, get away with it, but he only gets away with it for about half a second, and then not for any more. So we pick up 4,145 damage so far in this game, managing to finish off that Sturm which we hit earlier in the game, and the Hellcat is trying to run away, being a little rat in his little tier 6 seal clubber. Now we could get a final shot on this guy. I'm waiting. I bottled the shot. So even when we're bottling shots, it was kind of the first time I'd actually really played World of Tanks for a extended period of time, and we slowly managed to kind of get back into the groove of things, being able to actually hit shots. I don't know what it is, but maybe it's playing so much Ark Survival Ascended recently. If you guys know what that is, then yeah, shout out to you. But of course, yeah, playing a bit more World of Tanks now, getting into the groove of things and picking up a decent result either way with 4,200 damage, and yeah, coming top with 1,500 XP, and not a bad round at all. And this tank is very easy to be able to do damage numbers of like 3,000 plus. It isn't that rare, and even kind of some of the newer players will find this tank working in quite a few situations, if of course you are using some of those premium rounds. But jumping into the next one, we have a game on Rosanai. So with Rosanai, it is a decent map for, I feel like, every class. I feel like there's a little bit of something you can do. And so given that we are in a kind of heavy medium type tank, then we should be able to make something work and try and get something to kind of be in our favor, shall we say. So with this game, I believe it's a top tier game, so we are of course tier 8 in a tier 8 game, so it's always nice when you are in that and when you've got that alpha damage to punish some of those lower tier vehicles. In top tier games, this tank's actually fine. It has the alpha to keep up with a lot of the higher tier vehicles, so you don't feel like you're getting out traded constantly, which some of the other heavy tanks at this tier can feel like it happens quite often. Things like the Tiger 2 with like 360 alpha, I believe it has. Can feel a little bit painful when you're getting hit by people with 490 all the time, basically not having to aim at you and just penning you straight through your upper plate, etc. When you are playing that. But we're going to play quite aggressively in this game because I was basically bet by my mate who we were in a party with to see if we can make it work by playing more aggressively. So yeah, let's see whether or not we can actually win this game and whether playing aggressively in this tank is the way to go. So with the AMX M4 moving up, he's in a bit of a spot where hopefully we can get a free shot into him, but of course he doesn't manage to do that, and then he manages to pull outside on in front of us, auto-aiming probably the Lycan, which is unfortunate, leaving us against yeah, quite a few opponents. But as you can see, we are hold down, which is nice. But we do have a Primo Victoria to our left, which I don't quite know what was going through the brain of our player here in the Primo, but he is surrounded by about 1 million vehicles. So I decided not to go for the shot. We're going to try and get one into the T-32, which was actually probably the misplay, as yeah, we bounced straight off the side of the tank. The T-32 has a weaker turret at the back of the side of the turret, if that makes sense. Like the rear portion of the side, whereas the frontal portion of the side armor is actually fairly strong. It's kind of like a two-part kind of side armor, and then of course we bounce again off the side. So this is where the penetration of this tank can be a little bit annoying, although the T-32 turret is very strong, don't get me wrong. So yeah, you do have that. But of course, when he exposes the actual hull armor of the vehicle by poking up, we can get a shot of damage very easily. Like the T-32's kind of hull armor is very bad, much like we have in this vehicle. So we kind of got to play in a similar sort of role. But what we have to do here is just try and bait a shot from the Tiger 2, allowing us to actually push up and do something. But the Tiger 2 has good penetration. It's actually a bit of an annoying tank to play up against. And we don't have the ridiculous penetration where we can just go straight through the front of the turret. So we kind of got to be a bit wary here. But with the Oho, who's also pushed up quite aggressively, we can go for a side shot into that guy, and we managed to hit him quite easily, and then of course he gets finished off as we tracked him as well, getting a little bit of tracked assist too. But in trying to go for that guy, we do actually manage to expose some of our tank to the Tiger 2, who manages to hit us, and although it says it's a red area, which means we can pen, we don't actually pen, and I'm thinking it's because maybe it's not taking into account the angle of the turret. I don't know if Wargaming still have this, but often in the game you'll find that if you have, for example, certain aspects of the turret which have, you know, very weak armor, but they're very well angled, I'm not entirely sure if it actually tells you. So that's something maybe you guys will be able to help me with. I don't know if Wargaming have ever officially said that the penetration indicator does not take into account angling anymore, but I would assume it does, because there's quite a few instances where the angling doesn't seem to kind of work or whatever. And one of the tanks is the T26E4, which is a Super Pershing, because essentially what you have with that tank is a pretty weird kind of hull armor where it doesn't actually have that much armor, it just has a lot of spaced armor. Now we were getting hit from behind, so that's why you're seeing me kind of panic a bit here, because yeah, we'd pushed up a little bit too far, so the aggressive play is really not helping me here. But maybe we can get one into the T26E4, but we'll have to wait and see. And we do have this kind of T34 or T20, what am I talking about, T32 down over to here. Our tank destroyer decides to push in, not quite sure what he's doing, but we're going to go and try and support him as much as we can. The T32 is fired, we come around the side, we auto aim, and yeah, get punished for it. This is why you do not auto aim in this vehicle, and this is actually not good, because what happens here is the T32 is coming down the slope, able to get a better angle into the upper plate, and he's able to hit us. Then of course we low roll, meaning that the T32 is probably getting another one into us, and yeah, he does, but don't worry, because we slightly raise up, getting over the top of him and finishing him off with just the actual damage. But with 3,000 damage on the card and 2,080 blocked, it's a fairly decent game. But don't worry, this AMX ponders his way over towards us, and we pick up another hit into him. But there is still 6 vehicles on the enemy team left alive compared to our 3, and it's soon not going to be just 3 because yeah, our team are getting pounded by multiple tanks all on each of the flanks, which is going to leave us in a bad situation. And you'll see what happens here, because I was amazed at one of the shots that comes in from one of the players on the enemy team. So with that being said, what we're going to do is try and surprise the opponents by coming up in a bit of a weird spot. Like I thought it was a little bit weird, maybe it wasn't, but we're going to push over to this side. I'm hoping we can single someone out and get a bit of damage. That's what I was thinking in my brain. Maybe one of them is going to come back this way. Maybe they're thinking, yeah, I can kind of surprise him, much like we're trying to do. And maybe my misplay here is going up to this location. I'm thinking, someone's going to try and cross. Maybe what I could have done is actually waited just a little bit longer. But we pull up against this tiger, and then he manages to hit us on the move over the ridge whilst we were using our gun depression. Still manages to pen us, and then we get taken out. I was somewhat annoyed with that shot actually landing, and of course we played fairly badly, I guess, against the T-32. Lost more health than we needed to, managed to low roll as well, which was annoying, and don't come out with the win. But still a fairly decent game, picking up 3,300 damage in a losing one, so it definitely can work, and it works really well when you can play aggressively. So yeah, let me know what you guys actually think of the Inferno Chimera, and yeah, I'll be interested to see what you guys think of this 440 alpha damage beast. And if you have any questions or queries, leave them in the comment section down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a great rest of the day. Goodbye.